The air was thick with humidity, every breath heavy, every step sinking into the damp earth. The distant cries of birds and the rustling of unseen creatures filled the silence. But then, it stopped. The jungle, once alive with sound, fell into an eerie stillness. At first, I didn't notice. I was too focused on pushing forward, slicing through the vines, tracking footprints in the mud. But then, a strange sensation crept up my spine. The kind of feeling you get when you know, without a doubt, you're being watched. I froze. My pulse quickened. I scanned the dense foliage, eyes darting from shadow to shadow. Nothing moved, and yet the presence was there, heavy, unshakable. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't my imagination. Something was out there. A low, guttural growl rumbled through the trees, deep, primal, not a bird, not an insect, something much, much bigger. I held my breath, heart pounding against my ribs. Then a crash, branches snapping like bones, leaves trembling as something massive moved through the undergrowth. I turned my head just in time to catch a glimpse. A towering figure, dark and powerful, disappearing behind the trees. Panic surged through me. Was it a jaguar? A bear? No. This was something else, something stronger, smarter. It was watching me, studying me, deciding. My mind screamed for me to run, but my legs, they wouldn't move. I was trapped in that moment, caught between fear and fascination, standing face to face with something I was never meant to see. And in that instant, I realized I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was the prey. The weight of the jungle pressed down on me, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. My breath came in shallow bursts as I forced myself forward, each step careful, deliberate. The silence was suffocating now. No distant calls of howler monkeys, no chirping insects, nothing but the rhythmic pounding of my own heartbeat in my ears. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, that I had imagined the presence, the growl, the massive shadow shifting behind the trees, but the feeling wouldn't go away. I wasn't alone. A flicker of movement, just ahead, past the thick vines draped like curtains over the narrow path. My body tensed as my fingers instinctively tightened around the strap of my bag. I forced myself to take another step, then another. The crunch of twigs beneath my boots echoed louder than it should have. My hands were slick with sweat. The machete in my grip felt heavier than before. I swallowed hard, the dryness in my throat making it almost painful. Every sense was on high alert, scanning, waiting, and then a sudden crash. My body stiffened, the sharp snap of a thick branch breaking under immense weight. My heart lurched into my throat as I spun around, eyes darting wildly. The jungle was shifting, alive, moving. A powerful force was making its way through the undergrowth, just beyond my sight, unseen yet undeniable. I could feel it. The tension in the air was electric, charged with something ancient, something primal. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, to run, but something deeper held me in place. Curiosity? Fear? Some mix of both, tangled together in a way that made my muscles lock, my feet sink like stones into the soft earth. I strained to listen. Slow, deliberate steps, the crunch of leaves, the soft exhale of breath from something massive. It was close now, too close. My skin prickled with the awareness that I was being watched, studied, even. The weight of an unseen gaze pressed against my back, heavier than the jungle itself. A deep, resonant grunt shattered the silence, vibrating through my chest like rolling thunder. My body jerked involuntarily at the sheer force of the sound. This was no ordinary animal, no distant predator lurking in the shadows. This was something else, something with intelligence, something that knew I was there and was deciding what to do about it. My hands shook as I reached for my camera, fingers fumbling with the strap. If I could just capture this, just get proof of whatever was out there. But before I could lift the lens, another sound echoed through the trees, this time closer. A deep, rhythmic thudding, a sound that sent an unmistakable warning through every fiber of my being. My stomach twisted as realization dawned. Chest beating, a display of power, a message, loud and clear. I had wandered too far, stepped into something's territory, and now I was face to face with the king of the jungle. The moment stretched, endless and suffocating. The sound of the rhythmic thudding reverberated through the jungle, each beat hammering into my chest like a war drum. My breath hitched, my body frozen between instinct and fear. And then I saw it. Emerging from the dense foliage, towering over the undergrowth, a massive silverback gorilla stepped into view. Its dark eyes locked onto mine, deep and unreadable, filled with something I couldn't quite place. Not rage, not fear, but something ancient, something powerful. Every muscle in my body screamed for me to move, to turn and disappear into the trees. But I couldn't. I was rooted to the spot, trapped beneath the sheer presence of the beast before me. The silverback was immense, its thick arms hanging low, its chest broad and heaving with every slow breath. It didn't charge. Not yet. Instead, it stood there, watching, measuring. I dared not look away. Breaking eye contact might be a sign of submission, but holding it too long could be seen as a challenge. My pulse pounded in my ears as I struggled to find the delicate balance between fear and respect. The jungle around us held its breath. Not a single leaf rustled, not a single bird called. It was just me and the gorilla, standing in a fragile, unspoken truce. But then, something changed. A shift in the air. The silverback's expression hardened, its lips pulling back just slightly to reveal powerful canines. Its massive hands curled into fists. And then, another chest beat. Louder, stronger, more urgent. I knew enough about gorillas to understand what was happening. This wasn't curiosity anymore. This was a warning, a final one. I had invaded its territory, and my presence was no longer tolerated. One wrong move, one misstep, and I wouldn't be standing here much longer. My body trembled as I fought to keep my breathing steady. I forced myself to lower my head slightly, showing I wasn't a threat. But would it be enough? A sudden movement. The gorilla took a step forward, then another. My heart slammed against my ribs as my feet instinctively shuffled backward. The gap between us was closing, and fast. My mind raced. What do I do? Stand my ground? Run? Running was suicide. No human could outrun a charging gorilla. And if I moved too suddenly, it would trigger the exact response I was trying to avoid. I was running out of time. The gorilla exhaled sharply, nostrils flaring, its muscles tensing. And then, it lunged. Time slowed. My breath caught in my throat as the silverback launched forward, the ground shaking beneath its sheer force. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to run, but I knew better. If I ran, I was dead. My legs locked, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. The gorilla's massive form barreled toward me, and just as it seemed it would crash into me, it stopped, inches away. So close I could feel the heat radiating off its body, hear the deep guttural huffs of its breath. My entire body trembled, every instinct telling me I wouldn't survive the next few seconds. But then I saw it. Its eyes. Not mindless rage, not hunger, something else. A message, a test. The silverback wasn't attacking. It was warning. The gorilla let out a deep, resonant grunt, its breath hot against my skin. It stomped the ground, sending a spray of dirt and leaves into the air. I forced myself to stay still, my heart slamming against my ribs. One wrong move, one sign of aggression, and it could all be over. My mind spun, searching for an answer. Why hadn't it attacked yet? What was it trying to tell me? And then I saw it. movement in the shadows, not from the gorilla, from something else. My breath hitched as my eyes adjusted to the shifting darkness between the trees. A sleek, powerful form moved just beyond the undergrowth, low to the ground, muscles rippling beneath spotted fur. A jaguar. Realization struck like lightning. The gorilla wasn't the predator here. It was the protector. The silverback had sensed the danger before I had, positioning itself between me and the real threat lurking in the jungle. The jaguar, its golden eyes locked onto us, was stalking, waiting for a moment of weakness. My pulse pounded. If I made the wrong move, I'd have more than just one of the jungle's apex predators to worry about. The silverback let out a sharp, rumbling growl, shifting its weight, muscles coiled. A challenge. The jaguar hesitated, its tail flicking, considering its chances. And then, just like that, it melted back into the shadows, disappearing as silently as it had come. The gorilla huffed, its powerful shoulders rolling as it turned its gaze back to me. A moment passed between us. A silent understanding. This creature, this supposed beast, this so-called predator, had just saved my life. My legs felt like they would give out beneath me. The jungle, once a terrifying maze of shadows and unseen dangers, now seemed eerily still. My breath came in short, ragged gasps, my body frozen as the silverback stood before me, its powerful frame blocking the path where the jaguar had vanished. The realization of what had just happened sank in like a stone in my gut. This creature, this towering force of nature, had just protected me. But why? And for how much longer? The gorilla exhaled sharply, nostrils flaring, as if making one final decision. My instincts screamed at me to move, to retreat while I still had the chance. Slowly, carefully, I took a step backward, my heart hammering in my chest. The gorilla's eyes tracked my movement, deep and unreadable, but it didn't advance. I took another step, then another, and still, it didn't follow. A wave of cautious relief washed over me. I was being allowed to leave. The silverback had made its stance clear. I didn't belong here. I lowered my gaze slightly, giving a final, silent acknowledgement of its dominance. Then, as if accepting my surrender, the massive creature turned away. It moved slowly, deliberately, vanishing into the jungle the same way it had appeared, like a phantom of the wild, a force of nature that answered to no one. For a long moment, I just stood there, my body still locked in fight-or-flight mode, my mind struggling to process everything. I had come into this jungle believing I was the observer, the explorer, the one in control. But in reality, I was nothing more than an outsider, an intruder in a world where true power belonged to the creatures that called it home. I took a deep, shaky breath, forcing my legs to move, stepping carefully, deliberately, as I retraced my path back toward safety. Every few steps, I glanced back, half expecting to see the silverback watching from the shadows, but the jungle had swallowed it whole. It was gone. As I emerged from the dense trees, stepping into a patch of golden sunlight breaking through the canopy, I knew one thing for certain. That encounter had changed me. It had rewritten everything I thought I knew about the wild. The gorilla had been terrifying, yes, but not because it was a mindless predator. It was something far greater, a guardian, a ruler, a creature with intelligence, instinct, and a power beyond anything I could comprehend. And for reasons I might never fully understand, it had spared me. Even as I left the jungle behind, the weight of what had happened stayed with me. The encounter played over and over in my mind. The immense presence of the silverback, the silent threat of the jaguar, the unshakable feeling that I had stood at the very edge of something ancient and untamed. My heart was still racing, my body still tense, as if part of me hadn't truly escaped. As if part of me was still there, standing before that towering beast, staring into those deep, knowing eyes. I had spent years exploring the wild, documenting creatures that most people would never see outside of a screen. But nothing, not books, not research, not even first-hand experience, had prepared me for this. We like to think of ourselves as the dominant species, the apex of intelligence and power. But in that moment, I was nothing. Just another creature walking through a world I didn't belong to, a world where real power wasn't measured by weapons or words, but by presence, by instinct, by an unspoken understanding that this land was never ours to begin with. Even now, I wonder, if I had made one wrong move, if I had run, if I had failed to recognize the warning signs, would I still be here to tell this story? Or would the jungle have simply swallowed me whole, just another nameless traveler lost to its depths? The thought sent a chill down my spine. But more than fear, there was something else, something deeper, a respect I had never known before. That gorilla had every reason to attack, to chase me out with the full force of its strength. And yet, it had chosen not to. It had stood its ground, yes, but it had also given me a choice, a chance to walk away, a silent lesson in survival, in boundaries, in understanding the delicate balance of nature. I don't know if I'll ever see that silverback again. Maybe it has already forgotten me, just another passing shadow in its kingdom. Or maybe, somewhere deep in the jungle, it still remembers, still watches, still rules. And if I ever return, if I ever dare step foot in its world again, one thing is certain. I will not make the mistake of thinking I am the one in control. Because in the heart of the jungle, there are no kings, only those who survive and those who don't.